Hey friends, I've been waiting a while to make this video because I think it's such a burning question for people who struggle with fatigue. And I think that a lot of people in the nervous system healing world and in the chronic fatigue world or burnout world often elegantly kind of avoid giving a very clear answer to this question. Now, this is a question that develops along the recovery journey once you begin to realize that the sensations that you're having are often false alarms. Like the need for rest oftentimes is not a real genuine need for rest. It's a false alarm. And so then the question becomes, all right, well, how do I know when it's actually a false alarm and when it's a genuine need to stay home, to avoid overworking, or to come back home from outside when I feel overwhelmed and stop doing what I was doing? I don't want to ignore a real alarm, right? It's scary. It can be a bit scary if you confuse a false alarm for a real alarm. What if I'm causing myself some kind of a damage, right? So let me address this question as clearly as possible and give us sort of criteria to work with in terms of when is it actually a false alarm and when is it a genuine need. And by the end, if you stick around, it might surprise you a little bit. It might surprise you what we come to here in the end. So bear with me as we go along. All right. So the framework that helps most to tell the difference between an overprotective alarm and a genuine physiological need is asking the question, what is driving the decision right now? Is it fear or is it information? Now, a few distinctions can help. The first one is that rest will bring you temporary relief when it's a false alarm. Rest could bring you temporary relief. But what happens is overall, the threshold for symptoms gradually becomes lower over time because the nervous system learns that the sensations mean danger. In other words, what we're talking about is, let's think about like a smoke alarm, right? So a smoke alarm is supposed to go off when there's a genuine fire. But over time, if it becomes more sensitive, it goes off when there's burnt toast. So every single time it beeps, if you immediately evacuate the house, so to speak, then the alarm, the nervous system, never learns that burnt toast is actually safe. It's just burnt toast. The house isn't burning down. Instead, it concludes, okay, you're evacuating the house. I get it. I detected danger and you immediately escaped, means I was right to sound the alarm. So it gets more sensitive. Now it's going to sound the alarm sooner, maybe even louder, because it thinks it's protecting you. It thinks it's helping you. I wrote an article about anxiety. I'll attach it below. It's a similar idea. It's always changing your relationship with the symptoms. Anyway, back to our point here. What we're saying is that when we hear the false alarm, but we respond a different way, right? Then we can teach the nervous system to not sound the alarm as often. So let's say your current threshold is a 20-minute walk. You go for a 20-minute walk, and at minute 18, you notice heaviness. You think, this is the beginning of a crash. I'm about to crash. I got to go get back home. I got to lie down. I have to immediately, right? And so you do, and the symptoms settle. And then it's natural to conclude, good thing I listened to myself. I prevented a crash, right? That's very natural. And I mean, it's so convincing. That's why it took me 30 plus years to overcome chronic fatigue, because the sensations are so very real and so very convincing. But what the nervous system may have learned from this is that the heaviness was treated as something that brought about escape. Therefore, the next time, it's not going to wait till minute 18 to produce that heavy sensation. It's going to produce that at minute 15. And then you'll react to it at minute 15, and then it'll produce it at minute 10. And then at minute 5, we think that we avoided a crash. We thought, yay, okay, I saved myself from a crash. But really, we just increased the alarm of the nervous system. And then you get to a point where you're like, you know what, I'm just not going to go. I'm just not going to leave the house. And this very much happens with chronic fatigue or burnout or you end up being kind of restricted to the bed or to the house, and so because it's scary. What if I go out and I don't want to feel this way? So we end up in this avoidance pattern. And again, this is very related to other conditions with the nervous system, anxiety, insomnia, a lot of things. It's intrusive thoughts. We always want to avoid the unpleasant thing. But really, the way is always to expose yourself to it, and then while you're in it, to change the way you respond to it. Even though it's tempting to just go into the fear response, to with the information that I'm giving you here, to realize, wait, I don't have to be afraid and I don't have to obey or heed this. This is a false alarm. I am safe right now. So, overall, again, what we've said so far is that rest does help, but it overall teaches the nervous system over time to increase the consistency of the sensations, meaning they happen more consistently in shorter periods of time, um, and eventually it leads us to really avoid living our lives. Now, another quality is that the urge to stop feels urgent. We kind of mentioned this, that where you're walking outside and or you're doing something and you feel, if I'll continue, I will crash. Again, feels very, very real and very, very convincing. Absolutely. But that is a quality of a false alarm when it's very, very urgent. Now, we'll talk about when it actually is real, right? We haven't gotten to yet when it's genuine. So there is a caveat here. We'll get to that. And another quality is that activity itself isn't objectively very demanding, yet it feels threatening. So it's not necessarily that you're doing something that is, exhausting, but still it feels threatening, right? You got to kind of pay attention to the fear. The fear is very telling in these situations. Now, when is it really a genuine physiological need for rest? Okay, see, we said just a moment ago that the urge to stop may feel urgent or catastrophic when it's a false alarm. If I continue, I'll crash, right? Now, that is something that perhaps makes sense to heed if you've been working a lot and you've been exhausting yourself a lot, you've been losing out on a lot of sleep. There is something logical that makes your need for rest sensical. It's not like, a lot of people who come to me with chronic fatigue, they sleep certainly a fine amount of hours. They're not particularly overactive during the day, but the need for rest is there all the time, right? And so that's not really logical. It's not really sensical if you think about it. There's no real need for rest, right? But the sensations are saying we need to rest. A genuine physiological need for rest will be if you've been consistently active for a prolonged period, if you've been ill, injured, or under exceptional physical stress, all right, or exceptional mental stress. We have to remember that emotional states affect the nervous system tremendously, all right? You can't expect yourself, let's say you're sad or grieving, to feel super energized, right? It's not, it just doesn't go together, right? So understanding that this is just an emotional state that I'm in, it doesn't mean that there's physical damage or any kind of threat that I need to be concerned about here. It's just an emotional state, and emotional states always pass. Now, the fatigue that isn't just the nervous system sounding false alarms develops gradually. It's not like a sudden, oh my God, I got to go home or I'll crash, or I got to stop or I'll crash. It's something that builds. So that's why we have breaks, right? That's why we take breaks. When you study, you take a study break, right? So now another thing, how do you know that it's real fatigue? Is that when you rest, it restores you, and then you're able to resume activity normally. If you take a break, you can resume activity. So what we're actually seeing here is that it's very easy, in fact, to tell when it's a genuine physiological need for rest and when it's not. And what I want you to notice here is how much of the time it's really coming from so much fear. The whole need to rest that is coming from the false alarm. It's really just fear taking over, right? So it's catastrophizing. It's if I don't rest now, what's going to happen, right? And so imagine if you had the capacity to not believe those sensations, to let them be there, not even try to avoid them, not try to get rid of them. Just let them be there and know, oh, this is a false alarm. That's my nervous system trying to protect me. That's all right, right? And that you could just go on. And maybe you don't do it all at once. You don't try to go through all the false alarms that you get throughout a day just because you heard this video and just go all the way. Just do it gradually. Try to ignore a few false alarms at the beginning, then ignore a few more and see what happens. See if the fear decreases, if your confidence kind of rises in your ability to function and in your ability to basically feel symptoms without feeling freaked out, frankly, panicked. Can I make a calm, flexible decision rather than reacting automatically? Now, the decision isn't dictated solely by symptoms. You're noticing, you're introducing some logic into it. And the reason that that helps is because fear is often illogical. Fear is just like, I'm going to crash. I got to go. I got to go. It's like immediately, yeah, it doesn't think oftentimes. Here, it's like, okay, I'm noticing heaviness, but it doesn't necessarily mean what I think it means. So normal fatigue invites flexibility. Protective fatigue demands obedience. And that is really a huge point here that, like I said earlier, you don't have to obey. You don't have to heed it. And it kind of like is like taking your power back from the sensations. Over time, as recovery progresses, the protective alarms become less urgent, less convincing, and easier to distinguish from ordinary tiredness. You know what? I'll be honest with you, as someone who went through this, even if you sometimes mistake a false alarm for a genuine need for rest, so what? It's not always the end of the world. I mean, if you go aggressively at this, that's not what I'm suggesting here at all. I'm suggesting do it gently, like I said. Play in a day, in a given day, with a few false alarms, and then as your confidence starts to increase, play with a few more false alarms and go like, okay, maybe I don't need to heed this. Maybe I don't need to heed this. Maybe I'll stay out a little bit longer. Maybe I'll do this for a little bit longer. Just observe the sensation and the nervous system freaking out and saying fire, fire, fire. And just remember you're safe. And that it's a false alarm, meaning it means there's no fire, there's no danger. So this response to the false alarm of I'm safe, really, when you really understand that it's a false alarm, or you're really allowing yourself to test it, it starts to really grow your confidence in your safety, and the symptoms stop controlling you, and that's taking your power back. So do it gently, be kind to yourself. It's always very, very important. And even if it was a genuine need for rest and you pushed it back a little bit, so what? It's normal. People don't always get to rest when they want to rest, even if it's a genuine need for rest. But trust the body's intelligence and wisdom and the brain's intelligence and wisdom, because it knows how to recuperate. It knows how to recover. It's going to get the rest it needs. You know, it can make up for whatever lost opportunity at rest there was, right? It'll make up for it. It's not the end of the world. So even if you miss a genuine need for rest, nothing's going to happen. When we should be cautious is when there's an actual genuine need for rest and we keep ignoring that over and over and over and over again. That, of course, is going to burn you out. It's burnout, right? Because you needed rest, but you never listened. You kept pushing and pushing and pushing. What we're saying here, just to be very, very clear, is nothing like pushing yourself. It's really being accurate, more accurate with when it's a false alarm and when it's a genuine need for rest, and having the courage to go like, hey, this is a false alarm. I don't think I need to heed this right now. Let's see what happens if I continue a little bit while reminding myself that maybe the house is not on fire. All right, so let me know if this helps. Give it a shot. And yeah, please let me know in the comments what happens over time as you kind of practice this. And of course, if you want personal one-on-one, I do that as well. You can find the link below, and I'm happy to help you through your recovery journey. All right, take care, and I will see you in the next one.